You start.
I'll start.
You're good at it.
I'm Robert Reid. I'm the Artistic Director of Pop-Up Playground. In previous lives, I've been an academic and I completed my PhD in sustainability for small theatre companies, small independent theatre companies in Melbourne over the last 30 years. I finished that earlier this year. We graduated earlier this year. Yeah. So I'm a theatre historian and director. I'm also a playwright. I've worked for Melbourne Theatre Company and a range of other things. I've run my own theatre companies. And so I've spent the last 20 years making live performance in theatre. And now I'm Artistic Director of Pop-Up Playground and have been for the last 5 years since we started it.
Huzzah!
That's me.
Yay! And my name is Sayraphim and I work for Pop-Up Playground as well. I'm a co-director.
Yes.
And the Constructive Communities Director, because we got to make up our own titles and that was fun. And outside of that, I'm a public artist. I have a master's in art and public space. And I'm really interested in public space and people using it and what you can do and what you can't do and transgressions in public space. And before that, I worked in film and television and theatre and props and set. And my superpower is to be able to basically make anything at all. So we started in Games and Play.
We being me and you.
Yes, we being him and me. We were working in a call centre and I used to write role-playing games and present them at role-playing conventions when I was a teenager. And Rob, who had made a bunch of theatre shows, came up to me one day and said, you're a role player or ex-role player. I've got this idea and do you want to come and help me? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So the idea was that it was going to be a play at La Mama, which is a small theatre in Carlton. And the idea was that there would be 4 actors and we would divide the audience into groups and that they would follow the actors around. And the actors would be mainly monologuing, but they would wander around and then meet up and have scenes together and then move away again. And people could follow their actor for the whole time and get one story or like switch between actors. And I thought that sounded awesome. So I did all the props and set for it and I spent 9 months. So the idea...
Quite a bit of the world building too, like we did together actually.
Yeah, that's true. And so world building is a bit different to the props and set, but the props and set come out of that. And the idea was that it was a play about the Countess Bathory, who was the first female vampire in history. And it was a countess who supposedly bathed in the blood of young girls to keep herself all young and beautiful. And so I spent 9 months making the set, which was sort of a torture museum. So our idea was that for the first 20 minutes, the audience would wander around the bottom of La Mama as a whole torture museum. And there was like bags of hair of girls and torture implements and solitary cells that you had to crawl into and you'd come up and it was all sort of really squashy and then basically you had to awkwardly back out of the tunnel to get back out. And so would you want to talk about the reception of it?
Sure. So we constructed it so that audience had the ability to explore, as Sarah said. We gave them about half an hour, 45 minutes of exploration time.
No, it wasn't that. It was like 20 minutes.
I feel around half an hour, maybe. Anyway.
Doesn't matter.
Less than an hour of just free time to explore the museum and also interact with the actors who are moving around and preparing the show. And then at about that halfway mark, one of the actors stands up and says, ladies and gentlemen, the show is about to begin. So we'd been building, I was, with the old theatre company, Theatre and Decay, I was really interested in, less interested in the stuff on stage, all of the beautiful kind of imagery. Like we made a bunch of beautiful imagery, but I wasn't so interested in making beautiful props or costumes or having the technical stuff of theatre right. I was much more interested in using the company to provoke a response from the audience. I was always way more interested in what the audience was doing and how they engaged with the show. So we used a lot of shock tactics to get people up and walk out of shows. We used a lot of venues that weren't theatres, so the relationship between the audience and the show was different and more inclusive. And so Bathory was a step beyond that. It was a matter of getting the audience up, not only moving around, but making decisions, which for the first half hour they did. And then as soon as the actor, Scott Gooding, stood up and did the ladies and gentlemen, you could feel them coalesce into becoming an audience. Into a theatre audience. And they stopped making decisions. And when they picked an actor to follow around, they stayed with that actor. And it was really obvious. We didn't really understand it at the time, and we didn't have a language for it because it's back in 2003.
Yeah, we didn't fully understand what we were doing. 2003?
Yes, 2002. And we didn't understand at the time, but what we know now is the change in relationship between the audience and the experience strips them of agency, because they know that a theatre show means I take a back seat and just watch you talk.
I sit in the dark and pretend I don't exist so the art can happen in front of me.
Yeah, and that's the rules that of that interaction that are set up over 2,000 years of that interaction. Well, realistically, about maybe a couple of hundred actually, but it's so ingrained in us that you don't need to tell people now play the game of theatre. As soon as they recognise it, they start playing it.
And so the second half wasn't so successful as we'd hoped, because people only followed their actor around, and we didn't really know how we could encourage them to change actors. And it only ran for a week because it was in an experimental season. And so we weren't sure what to go. We'd made up a word for it for the press release. We called it gameplay, and it had like
play,
game/play.
Yes.
We were all really proud of that.